Hello everyone, welcome back to the another episode of Be Remote Podcast. I'm your host Pushpak, and today we have with us Mr. Lap-Tin. Lap-Tin is a founder and CEO of Visuo. Welcome to the show, Lap-Tin. How are you doing?
Great. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me, Pushpak.
Yeah, so why don't we start with a short introduction about yourself, Lap-Tin?
Yeah, that's right. So Visuo, we are an AI-powered video creation platform. We're based team out in Sydney. Our specialty, as you kind of pointed out here, is really around helping brands and agencies and brands to
Mm-hmm.
scale their video production. Using the power of AI and automation. Really, especially with this pandemic and everything's going on, business is moving more and more digital.
Right.
Spending more time and money, effort on digital marketing, including video marketing. But video production, like the creating of that video, is still a very expensive, time-consuming process. So our business really here to try to help business to kind of really streamline that, scale that, so they can get more out the door for less, in the simplest terms.
Right. So what kind of problem you're solving for your customers? So are you like creating videos? Do you have content creators or do you have videographers? Like what
Mm.
exactly you're doing?
Yeah, that's right. So we actually have a range of services that we offer. What we do, we actually work with a lot of video production companies to
Mm-hmm.
help them actually maximize all the content. So one of the interesting things about video production is, the typical 15-second ad that you and I see on YouTube or Facebook or TV or whatever. Like 15-second ad could take anywhere from 6 to 15 hours to create.
Right,
So you can
right.
imagine there's a massive amount of I guess quote unquote wastage
Mm-hmm.
effort that goes into that, that we help them leverage. So we actually help take, for example, that 15-second might have recorded 6, 7, 8 hours of footage to create that 15 seconds. So there's a massive amount of all this extra spare content around that you and I
Mm-hmm.
never see, never comes to the light of day. And so we're in a great place to help turn all that content, process it, through our proprietary process, and so that a business can use that again and again and again.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Boom. So why repeat the effort? Why send another crew out to do another recording when you've
Mm-hmm.
actually got a whole massive library of all this great quality content that you can use at your fingertips? Power. That's kind of really where a lot of the big power comes in. And for these big agencies and brands, they've got massive amounts of that type of content sitting around.
Right, totally. I think since the pandemic started, and we are already right now mostly we are doing online marketing everywhere. But I think
Hmm.
since the pandemic started, it's like booming a lot. Like everyone is doing only online marketing. So
Hmm.
yeah, it
Yeah,
makes sense.
exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. And where interesting, a lot of people, to your point, exactly, video marketing is the growing part, but a lot of people forget that someone has to create that content, right? So
Right,
so
right.
you post an ad, someone has to manually create that video you saw. Someone had to spend time creating that, and so if we can help them scale it, that means we can do more, right?
Right,
And
right,
and
right.
and I think as any business owner, marketer knows,
Mm-hmm.
marketing is an ongoing effort. It's not a, well, let me run campaign. I'm done. Whoo, wow.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
all good. Marketing is an ongoing effort. So the more content that you have, that you can push out, generate, and do it in a very cost-effective manner,
Mm-hmm.
that means that you've always got fresh, new content to keep on engaging your audience with. That's the
Yeah,
way to
yeah,
do
yeah.
effective marketing.
Awesome, awesome. So I wonder, Lapin, like you're working remotely right now also, and I wonder when did you started working remotely, and before the pandemic and after the pandemic, how does the pandemic affected your business? So is your business growing after the pandemic, or the rate of clients you have, like it is booming, or something else happened pre and after pandemic?
Yeah, that's right. So I'll answer the second question first around the pandemic. So yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it's been an interesting time. To your point, actually, we were launching we were launching our business in the middle of the pandemic.
Oh, okay.
So
Mm-hmm.
it's so interesting challenge here. As a founder, straight up, I'm not going to say, look, we win more. As a founder, you always want more business.
Right, right.
There's never enough. Was it were we satisfied with where we were going? Yeah, we were comfortable with it. we would have always liked more. But we've also, I think, if anything, seen the trends and taken the learnings, and then gone, how do we actually, take it further from here, leverage the right opportunity. So I think, it like anything, right? Every crisis represents an opportunity, as well. It's just how you look at it, and sometimes unfortunately you just have to give it a little bit of time to kind of see how the trend plays out in
Right.
that sense.
Mm-hmm.
Coming back to the first question around the remote working, so my team and I, so Visual, we started from the beginning as pretty much as a remote team.
Okay.
So a lot of my team members, we live in the same city, but we've actually been virtual pretty much, since day one.
Mm-hmm.
Predominantly, mainly because as Visual, we are online, SaaS business.
Right.
So naturally, it's easy for us to go into, work virtually anyway,
Mm-hmm.
and also to, I think, even before Visual, a lot of other startups I had before that were also online businesses. So I were already pretty comfortable with the whole remote working, and I think remote working is also really a good way to supplement, the team,
Right. Right.
to expect that, hey, just because the area I live in, the people I know have all the different skills, resources, and expertise that I need. I think that's a very difficult challenge nowadays, right? Keeping in mind, as a business owner, you need technical skills,
Yeah.
you need
Yeah.
marketing skills, you need sales skills, you need accounting skills, all these type of things, and and to have a team that just can do it all by themselves, especially at the early stage. It's a big ask. So remote working, being able to tap resources from around the world to help. I think it's a fantastic thing that's happened in the last, decade or so. That kind of that's really picked up, because it's
Mm-hmm.
really given business a lot of startups an opportunity to kind of get resources they wouldn't normally get and be able to build their
Mm-hmm.
businesses up. Side note, actually, I've actually met a few startups that purely remote, like their whole team. The only permanent member of the team is the founder. Everyone else is are remote resources, working as part of that business, and it works, right? And it works, and I think that's definitely a big part of why I think it makes a lot of sense.
Right, right, right. So I think you mentioned it's been a decade you were working remotely, right? So
Mm.
like, what was any specific reason? Because 10 years back, people didn't believe in work from home. Like, if you are working from home, it's like, how is that even possible, right? So that was the mentality of people even 2 years back. So like you were saying, you were working. It's been a decade. So how was that? Like, what made you choose that path?
Yeah, I'll be upfront, probably more need than anything. So I think as a startup, I mean, it's trendy to talk about, you do a startup. Hey, the first thing I have to do is get an engineer, high-end,
Mm-hmm.
top-end engineer, 100, in Australian dollar terms. So I'm based in Sydney, Australian dollar terms, 200K, $200,000 a year, get them chugging along, building the best product in the world.
Yeah,
Sounds
yeah,
great,
yeah.
very romantic. But the reality is, most startups won't have that kind of couple of 100K of
Right.
capital sitting around, to do that. So I think, from if you're a startup, especially when you're still in that market validation phase, your customer validation, trying to prove, validate, is there actually, well, do I have the right product, and is there a market for my product, right? Product market fit.
Mm-hmm.
When you're still doing that, it doesn't make sense to go spend big on local, expensive local resources, local or localized. And I'm not saying, necessarily local is expensive. It's more, that whole expectation usually,
Mm-hmm.
especially like places like Australia and the US, local resource a
Right,
bit more expensive. Whereas
right.
remote, you can actually go, I can spin up a team, have a basic proof of concept or working prototype built for a fraction of that price, which allows me to then take it out to market, test it
Mm-hmm.
out with customers, see how people respond before then you commit to the bigger spend. Also, the good thing about that is then you've actually tested a smaller team, like a team that can help you. If the team that built you your proof of concept
Mm-hmm.
can often be in a great place to go, well, now we're ready, we've tested, validated the product and the market, we can now go big. You've already got a team that actually are already familiar with your product and can really
Right, right, right.
ramp up from there. And so we've used that quite successfully, in a number of times, across a number of my businesses, to get external teams to help build stuff up pretty
Mm-hmm.
quickly and cost effectively. So, once again, that from a business, a startup point of view, you're allocating your capital in the best way possible, essentially.
Right, right, right. Makes sense. Yeah. So, what were your initial days of working remotely? Like when you started working remotely, and how was that experience?
Yeah, I mean, definitely back in the day when I first started, we didn't have tools like Slack. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Actually, even Trello didn't exist at the time. I can't remember. There was another kind of those project management tools, and so a lot of communication was via email, which probably, in hindsight, wasn't the most. When you're trying to keep on
Right.
top of development work, it's
Mm-hmm.
hard. Also, Zoom didn't exist back in those days, so
Right.
the only video conferencing software was WebEx, which most people couldn't get because unless you were a big corporate,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
like a
Skype was there,
startup
right?
kind. Yeah, there was Skype, but it wasn't too like it wasn't that great of
Right,
performance,
right. Mm-hmm.
and so there were a lot of challenges. So definitely, I think and this is something my team and I have refined over time. The two biggest things we find is communication. Around communication, setting expectations, keeping up to date with what's going on, and then the second one is managing the quality of the work. Which is always a problem. It's always not always a problem. It's always a challenge anyway. Local or
Mm-hmm.
otherwise, it doesn't really matter. But remote, I think, just adds an extra layer, just mainly because of time differences, communication, cultural differences. Like even just translating. Like I write my requirements, in the way that makes sense to me. I hand
Right,
it over
right.
to my remote team, and they have a
Mm-hmm.
slightly different, no fault of their own. It's just human nature, right? You
Yeah,
interpret it
yeah.
in a slightly different way. So having processes and regular, processes in place to systems in place to manage that. I think as a startup, it might not be where a founder goes like that's where I really want to spend most of my time, but that's actually where it really pays off if you're really going down the remote
Mm-hmm.
working path. So we have, for example, my team. Whenever we have anyone working, or even when we don't have external members of the team working with us remotely, even just our team alone, we have at least three catch-ups a week. We have a Trello board where we manage all our work and tasks.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we use Slack as our regular comms tool, so we can message each other whenever we need. And I think that's really important. Once again, keep on top of everything,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
also instantly go like, I think your understanding and my understanding might be a little bit different.
Yeah,
Boom,
yeah,
we
yeah.
don't wait.
Agree.
We pick up the phone. Not well, the virtual phone, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that having that open line of communication is really important. Yeah, rather than and we even actually say that sometimes we bring on remote contractors, and the first thing
Mm-hmm.
we say to them, if you have a question, don't wait until the catch up. Don't wait
Right,
until the
right.
catch up.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
message us or call us, whatever you need.
Mm-hmm.
One of us is usually around, at the time that you'll be working. Ask us and we'll help you clarify. Because then they're not wasting their time either, right? Because it's also a
Mm-hmm.
two-way street. If you've got a remote team member, sitting there waiting for instructions, waiting for clarification, that's also not a good use of their time. So it really is a two-way street to kind of make that relationship work as
Yeah,
effectively as
yeah.
possible.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. So, what do you think about regular scrums or regular meetings? Do you think that makes sense, or like do you think the productivity of employees increases if you have a regular meetups, or it's better to meet twice or thrice a week? What do you think about that?
Yeah, so it's an interesting one. I thought, look, realistically, but every organization probably differs in its, in what works for them.
Mm-hmm.
We find, like we said, every 2 days, so 3 times a week on average.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
interestingly enough, our pattern is Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday. And people go, Sunday, really? But it works for our team. Like every
Yeah,
team, I
yeah.
think should find out what. Look, because working remotely, things do, especially in development, in IT development space, things don't happen that quickly. Sometimes just fixing a defect could take a whole day of investigation, right? So having multiple, catch-ups all the time, I think just then gets too much. But we find, find this pattern for us works out well. 2 days in between is good enough to make some progress and make some decent progress, get a proper update, so that everybody knows where everybody is at. And we've
Right,
gone into the
right.
habit where even if we don't have a lot to talk about, like it's we still do the catch up.
Mm-hmm.
It's a matter of discipline. It's
Yeah,
a matter
yeah,
of that
yeah.
discipline. Because you can always end the meeting earlier. You can always end the catch up earlier. Nobody says, "Well, I booked an hour in. Well, we have to talk for a whole hour," right? I think
Mm-hmm.
that's some of the misconceptions people have. Well, I've got an hour. We've got to talk the whole. No, you don't. If you've only got 10 minutes to talk about,
Yeah,
of
yeah.
things to talk about. That's it. Done. That's fine. Finished. But at least you've communicated. You've had that catch up. Your team's everybody's on the same page as where we're at and what we need to focus on. And then I think that's the most productive way to keep everybody, focused,
Yeah, yeah.
motivated, working on the right things. Because once again, startup. I think the key thing for a lot of startups, remember your time and resources are always tight in the startup,
Right.
right? You don't have, unlike a big massive organization which got multi-billion dollar
Mm-hmm.
multinational corporate which got money to burn, you don't.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's very important to what limited time and effort and resources you have is always focused on the most valuable
Mm-hmm.
things.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And that's what those stand-ups are really important to do. Worst case, for example, like put in a context, the worst case that happens is, if you have a 2 day catch up every 2 days, the worst case we've lost is a day's worth of work at most. Like if
Right,
we
right.
someone did the worked on the wrong thing, at most we've wasted a day, at most.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So I think, when you put in that kind of context, we have very little wastage,
Yeah.
from that point of view.
I think this really makes sense, like a meeting twice a week, because if you're meeting every day, I think some people might get burned out. Like, why do I need to, there's no, it doesn't matter, right? Because you trust your employees, you trust your colleague that, yeah, everyone is working on themselves as their flexible time whenever they can, right? So this is really great that you guys meet, 3 times a week. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. And to that point, I think that's really important too. For any founder who's kind of interested in thinking of going down the remote working path, you just hit on the net trust, right? That
Right.
tr that trust, that relationship, that trusting relationship is vitally important. And that's another reason for that communication. That communication helps you build and maintain that trust. So if let's say you got a remote worker in another country, let's say another time zone, right? It's very easy to fall in the trap of go, well, I haven't spoken for a week. Are they doing the work? What are they doing? What's going
Yeah,
on?
yeah, yeah.
And then it becomes a very self-defeating cycle because then that stress, they're
Mm-hmm.
probably doing their work, but in your own head, you're making, you're imagining
Yeah,
all of these various scenarios and all these kind of things. Whereas if you catch up regularly, once again, it might only take 5 minutes or a couple of minutes,
yeah, yeah.
but you know exactly what they're doing. They're also comfortable, also get the chance to check with you that they're
Mm-hmm.
focusing on the right things.
Right,
That's
right,
actually
right.
how you build that trust, and make sure you have a good trusting relationship between both
Yeah.
sides. And that's when you've got a really good, solid, working relationship where it's focused on very much outcomes,
Mm-hmm.
not is this person, logged in, sitting at the desk, when I'm at my desk. That's that's an old way of thinking.
Yeah,
You know,
that's not a
the
great mindset
you know,
to have. Yeah.
yeah, that's right. The way of working now is outcomes. Right? As long as you get, as long as you can deliver the outcomes, achieve the results that we're looking for, that we're all aiming to achieve, then great. How you want to manage your time and how you want to work is really up to you.
Yeah, yeah.
That's great. But in order to make sure that you're both on the same page about what you're trying to achieve and what you expect, that requires communication. You can't just throw a piece of paper at someone and go do steps ABC, follow it, and then just
Yeah, yeah.
expect magically happen.
Yeah, because having a flexible work hours, that's the beauty of remote work, right? Like, because there should be some perks, and one of the perks of being a remote worker is you can work whenever you want. Some people are productive in morning, some are in evening, so it's different from everyone. Yeah. uh
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. No, you're right. Like even my team and I, like my team always jokes about I'm a very night person, so
Mm-hmm.
I'm working at midnight, and they're more daytime, right? So and that, but doesn't matter. So, to your point, I'm not there sitting there going,
Exactly. Yeah.
well, why aren't you up at 12? Well, why aren't you up at midnight delivering stuff
Mm-hmm.
for me? Because I know that. But more importantly is, do we get the job done? Right? Are
Yeah.
we moving ahead? That's the most important thing of all.
Exactly.
Important.
Yeah. So, what kind of other challenges you face while working remotely? Like, one of the biggest challenge which you have faced, and how did you work on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think we kind of covered quite a few things, really around tracking progress and ensuring the quality. I think the other
Mm-hmm.
big one probably that comes to mind is the onboarding. And definitely like we're seeing a lot of like you see in the news and stuff. A lot of people talk about remote working or working from home is great, but what about the younger people or new
Right,
starters?
right,
How do you
right.
onboard them?
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, we definitely do spend a lot of time. Uh, especially when we have any new team members join, even temporary ones, and like temporary team members,
Mm-hmm.
remote workers, remote team members. We spend at least a good Obviously that's the interview and whatnot, but we also spend a lot of time briefing them,
Right, right, right.
getting them set up and all these kind of things, really making sure the first couple of days, I think the first, probably the 2 to 3 to maybe a week is
Yeah,
the
yeah.
key, right? You
Right,
really
right.
want to spend a lot of time making sure they're set up, they're clear on what they need to do, they have understand, they have the tools, that they require, like if it's development, access to all the, GitHub and all those kind of various things that they
Right.
require. But definitely, like I find that that's probably the best investment of your time. Uh, like whenever we spend the time properly to get our new team members up and running properly, they're almost always really effective. From that point onwards,
Mm-hmm.
because they're clear on what they need to do, what we're trying to achieve, what part they play
Yeah,
in
yeah.
in the puzzle, and then boom, away they go. Once again, I've seen the temptation from some, people who try remote working. Well, once again, here's my requirement document. Here's the design. Just do it. Just follow it, right?
Yeah.
But but once again, like we said before, there's the subtleties in the interpretation.
Mm-hmm.
Like just because I read a requirements document doesn't help me as the person who's doing it, doing the work, understand what you're trying to achieve.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah.
And so, so I might have a different view on things, or I might be able to provide you some advice, or I may go, well, based on my understanding of what you want to try to achieve, there might be a better way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Of doing, and that all happens all the time, especially in our software space, right? It doesn't always, there's never a you know exact way. Here's the exact correct way to do this. There are usually
Right.
multiple ways to do it. And so spending the time with any new remote team member to get them up to speed, and like we're saying, it's not about. I don't think it's about. Oh, he's a nice little laptop. He's a nice grab bag of items. Which once again, I know for some businesses and some people appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
For me, we find for our experiences, find is they the other side, the team members we bring on, they appreciate that we're spending the time with them, answering all the
Yeah,
questions,
yeah.
give them as much context as we can. And once again, that also demonstrating the trust. Like trust is, once again, it's not one of those things where you can go, well, I don't trust you, Pushpak, and you don't trust me. Let's gradually work together until we trust each other, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to trust each other that way. You'll never build trust that way. One of us must reach out to the other first.
Right, right.
In our context, we're reaching out to the team member, and giving them, sharing with as much as we can, so that they know they can trust us, that we're open with them,
Yeah.
and they can understand what we're trying to do. And we almost always find that in return they reciprocate that relationship, and they give us their all, their 100%, 101%.
Mm-hmm.
110%, I should say, to kind of deliver for us. And I think that's, once again, that's when you have a really strong relationship from there.
Yeah, yeah. I have experienced this personally because when some new intern is joining, and even when I joined my company first,
Mm,
so it's really important that you talk with that person like on a regular basis, because and you know what, they will have a lot of questions for you. I have observed this
mm,
personally. So if I work with some new interns, so they have a ton of questions, and if we explain them everything in a proper way, and they will get the work done because
mm,
it takes time to understand what we are working on. Like maybe that person is coming from a different industry, they don't know a lot about this industry, so that's
mm,
why I think it takes time. So what you said, yeah, really makes sense. It's very important. Yeah,
mm. That's right. That's right. Uh,
yeah.
yep.
How large is your team, and where are they located geographically? Are they in all of them are in Australia, or like they are located globally as well?
Yeah. So our team is currently five strong, like core team members of five strong. Most of us
Mm-hmm.
are in Sydney. One of them is actually in the US.
Mm-hmm.
On the East Coast.
Okay.
And we once again we supplement that team from time to time. Like we recently had a developer help us out for a couple of months. He was in Mongolia. We also use have team members in the Philippines. We sometimes also work with team members in India.
Mm-hmm.
uh, we've had people working in from France,
Yeah, yeah.
UK, Ukraine, Spain, like actually like all of, and I know that's once again one of the interesting aspects to that I think that remote team brings that kind of cultural flavor to it.
Mm-hmm.
to not just for the sake of, oh, look, let's share different stories. What do you eat over there? What you eat over here? That type of thing. It's more,
Mm-hmm.
I think, in terms of from a business point of view, also how different people think.
Right, right.
So for example, our designer, who we've used before, UX designer from France, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it just has a very different way of approaching the problem, you know, versus some of the people we've dealt with, local in Australia, for example,
Mm-hmm.
right? So these are the subtle little things that kind of, I think, make a big can over time kind of make a big difference,
Yeah.
and whatnot. So I think it's like anything, right? Diversity gives you different points of view, different perspectives. We're very cautious. It's always been in the back of my mind. Is our team diverse enough? And the answer is right now, as a startup with just 5 people, it's not, right. But
Mm-hmm.
but we try to always think about diversity. How do we supplement the team with different points of view? Like our team is not like you would think Australia, a team heavily Caucasian. Well, actually, no. We've got a New Zealander, we've got South African, you've got
Yeah.
Asian. We've got American in the team. So once again, different people from different backgrounds, to bring a different experience and a different flavor to the business, and give you the different perspective. And I think that's also another real big benefit of the
Mm-hmm.
remote working. For example, just type, we're in Australia, and and I understand the Australian market. I've been here for lived here for almost 40 years. But if I'm trying to sell to the US or the UK, I'm not a local there. There are cultural differences that I'm never. It would take me a while to understand, right? Whereas if we can tap into someone, a remote team member who's local, who understands the customs,
Mm-hmm.
understands the culture, understands how they do business there, right? Bang, already. You just, as a startup, you've sidestepped like probably 6 months, 6 to 12 months of building up all that knowledge and experience, right?
Right,
That's
right.
an invaluable addition to the team.
Awesome. It must be really cool, working with everyone like working with people from all around the globe. That must be cool.
Yeah, no, it is like it just gives you a very different perspective on things.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, you know, actually, I was the we're part of an acceleration program, and they talk about this. There's a common fallacy in startups where that to be a successful startup, you need to be like a jerk, like Steve Jobs. The type, like brilliant, brilliant genius.
Mm-hmm.
But that kind of but that also stepped on like had that really temper that really well known for having a big temper and whatnot. And the answer is and the truth is, that is a fallacy, right? You don't get by in business by, or at least you don't get by in good business or build long-lasting business by going stepping on everybody else, and
Mm-hmm.
making enemies along the way, right? Collaborations, partnerships, are how businesses, good businesses are built. And so, if you take with that train of thought, then understanding other people in their culture, how they work, how they operate, how they what they think, what they value. I think it's all really important part of the process, and to also make you as a founder, a more rounded person, well-rounded person overall.
Right, right, right. So, what is that one thing which you are curious about remote work, and where do you see the future of remote work? Or do you think the offices are dead, like people will go back to remote work or not? Like the offices or not?
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, that's an interesting one. Look, I mean, I don't claim to be a, one of those futurist demographic kind of kind of guys whose job is to, project these kind of things. But I mean, the trends are clear pretty much. Now that we've opened the work from home kind of doors, that door's been open. I don't think you can close that anymore.
Right, right,
I'm
right.
sure realistically, there are always going to be some businesses that still need people on the ground in the
Mm-hmm.
office, or retail, or in the shops and whatnot.
Yeah.
There's always going to be some businesses like offices and whatnot that will still want their teams to come in occasionally. But the reality is, I think, if the pandemic has proved anything, is that we can work from home, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we
Yeah.
can do it successfully. And I think there'll definitely be, maybe not a full, 100% everyone work from home all the time. I don't think that's like just logistically ever going to be feasible for various business needs. But I think a hybrid model of some sort, makes sense. So even my team, even though we're virtual, right, back pre-pandemic, we would still catch up face to face, probably
Yeah,
once
yeah.
every couple of weeks,
Mm-hmm.
because there's just something about the human interaction.
Exactly.
You can see each other, talk to each other, shake hands, bump elbows, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah,
That I
yeah.
think helps a lot, which you do lose from that, working from home thing. But I don't think you can actually put the whole work from home thing back in that was
Mm-hmm.
the phrase, back in the bottle, right? Genie's out of the bag. And I think that's, if you think from any business, any startup, uh, any good startup should always be thinking global anyway.
Yeah,
So it
yeah.
makes sense to go, well, I can either get go for broke, try to get $100 million of investment, and try to have a team,
Mm-hmm.
a permanent team, my own permanent team everywhere,
Mm-hmm.
which could take like Uber style, have offices every single location.
Right.
Or I can actually be smart about this and go, well, actually there are already people there that I could tap now without
Mm-hmm.
massive amounts of capital and funding, who can already help my business get up and running. Like, which way would you go? Right? It's easy,
Right,
you know,
right.
tap those resources, get them on board. Your business is already effective, effective and either building product or generating business or revenue and sales, within a couple of months time. That's the way. That makes the most sense, rather than going, well, I need to go down the Uber, Tesla, what we work route of, having a couple of $1 billion up my sleeves before I can go global, right? That's just,
Mm-hmm.
not to say it can't be done, but
Yeah.
that's very rare. You and I have a better chance of winning the lotto than actually the lottery than that happening.
Yeah. So, I was wondering, like you said, like even before the pandemic, you guys used to catch up like once a week because human interaction makes a lot of sense, right? So I wonder, like, what do you guys do? Do you like meet up right now? And because like sometimes working remotely, it's kind of stressful, and it's like people get anxiety, depression from it, and at the same time we have this pandemic going on, so people are already anxious, and then you're working alone, so this could be really stressful for a lot of people. So how do you like take care of your employees maybe, or how do you take care of yourself? Like what suggestions would you give to
Mm.
people who are working remotely? So how should we take care of our mental health as well? I think this makes this is mental health is a lot of, I think it is like very important thing when it comes to working as well. So what do you think about
Yeah,
that?
no, yeah, no, you're definitely right. Like, if I look at our conversations, like our team, we'll go through and I think this is byproduct of the whole pandemic, working from home from a long time point of view. Even after every stand up or catch up that we have, often we'll go talk about random stuff for a little bit. Just casual conversation,
Right,
right?
right.
How things are going, family, da 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 da. Obviously pandemic vaccinations come up as a lot in terms of conversation.
Yeah,
But I think
yeah.
that's kind of, once again, that human element,
Mm-hmm.
right? I once again, as a founder, it's very tempting to go, look, on the ball, talk business, boom, boom, boom,
Yeah, yeah.
talk shop, move on, right? But also, I think, for your team, from a founder point of view, thinking from your team, letting them have a bit of chance to have a release, have a bit of a
Mm-hmm.
just a normal human social interaction, having that time, I think, put that. I think that makes a big difference. Also, once again, that helps because you can't see each other. That's a great way to still build that team bonding, that team
Right,
connection,
right.
right? Because you're sharing stories, you're sharing your own life stories. Once again, within reason, um,
Mm-hmm.
the other side of the, I think, we were touching on this point before, right? Which is of how the remote working is working your own way, right? That's one of the benefits
Mm-hmm.
of remote. It's your own hours, your own way, how you want, when you want. And so I strongly recommend, like, any not just founder, but also founders recommending to that team, right? The way we work is, we're about delivery, we're about targets, or about outputs, getting outcomes, getting what we need done. How you want to do that, up to you. So therefore, with that in mind, look, take some time out. Like, don't have to work from 9 to 5 nonstop. It's daytime. Take a
Yeah,
couple of
yeah.
hours, go out for a walk. Obviously do it safely. Masked up and
Yeah,
all that
yeah.
type of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But go out, get some sun, get some fresh air. Whatnot. I think that's really important, because I think even without working from home, the pandemic stuff, just I think we're always so busy working, working. We don't actually give
Mm-hmm.
ourselves time to think. Think through what's the best way of doing this. The brain, like anything, right? We know from a physiological and psychological point of view, gets tired as well, right?
Yeah.
Exercise and stress and unable to think. So giving yourself that time, go out, relax, go get a coffee, like even if it's simple things like just saying hi to your local barista, at the cafe, just say hi, wave, here's my drink. I think those kind of interactions just can make a bigger difference in terms of, just giving you that kind of your mental health, that social interaction. I think is vital. Like I do that all the time. Like every day I find at least an hour or two to go out for a walk.
Yeah.
Uh, and what I find is during that time I get a lot of ideas, a lot of creative ideas pop into my
Right.
head
Right.
because once again, you're not in front of the computer staring at a piece of work trying to go like, how do I get this through? You've got that, you got that moment to yourself, out in nature, watching other people walk around, whatever you want to call it, birds, the cats, the dogs, whatever around
Yeah.
the area,
Yeah.
up at the park. And I think that's really important to do that. For people who are also more extroverted, probably more social, calling your friends, having a bit of a
Mm-hmm.
chat. That's important. I'm a little bit more towards the introverted side of the spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't need as much as an individual. I don't need as much interaction, but that's just me. A lot of founders also very extroverted, very sociable
Yeah.
type of
Yeah.
things. Creatures, so finding people you can talk to, whatnot. And once again, doesn't always have to be about work, right? Just sometimes can be just about, hey, how you going? How you going? How's the family?
Mm-hmm.
Folks like that. That once again, just taking a bit of a break away from the grind, to just, and I think that's really important. Obviously, for people who like really, really serious anxiety and feeling that, then obviously in that case, all I can recommend is seek a professional, proper
Yeah. Yeah.
professional help.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a counselor in any particular
Right.
way,
Right. Right.
but I think for most people, just that, get away from, once again, as a founder, you're always tempted, there's always more to do on my startup. There's always more to do.
Mm-hmm.
But by the same token, there's always more
Yeah.
to do. It will
Yeah.
never
Yeah.
end. It'll
Mm.
never end. So finding time for yourself, I think is really important, especially when you're always at home, interacting just by
Right.
yourself.
Right.
I think that's really important.
Makes sense. Yeah. Yeah. So, as a founder, I wanted to ask you, like, what did you learn from starting a company, like, which you wouldn't have learned from anywhere else? What are those special points, like, which you specifically learned from only starting a company?
Yeah. Look, question is like, how long do you want to talk, right? How long do you want to go on about this? I had someone message me earlier going, hey, can you teach me about startups? Can you educate me about
Mm-hmm.
how startups work? I'm like, how long do you have? This could be a long conversation. But look, I mean, if I think about it, they're probably, my background, just a little bit of my background. I spent many years in the corporate land, probably
Mm-hmm.
about
Okay.
15 years working for the big corporates,
Mm-hmm.
alongside doing my own startups, but then eventually, moving into full time, my own startups. So there are probably some lessons, if I correlate those two,
Yeah.
put those together. I mean, the first one is definitely like in the corporate land. We like to think everything is a straight line, right? Do X to achieve Y. All right.
Mm-hmm.
CEO says we need to do more sales, so therefore you bring on more salespeople, right? BDMs, right? And usually it works, right, in the corporate line because that you already have the tools, the systems, processes all in place. As long as I just replicate it, scale it, happy days, right? That's the benefit of corporate. Startups never works that way.
Mm-hmm.
It never works that way. I've been doing my own startups for over 10 years, and I can tell anyone who's thinking of doing their own startup, right? Don't be comfortable with ambiguity. Be comfortable with changing plans. That's okay. That's actually part and parcel. If
Yeah.
you are seeing a straight line X, from if I do X, it will achieve Y.
Mm.
You're probably doing something wrong. You're probably doing something wrong. It
Right.
never
Right.
works
Right.
that way, right?
Mm-hmm.
Startups always go around in circles, and you need to be comfortable with that.
Mm-hmm.
Roll with it, right? Find new ways to work. I mean, secondary to that, and that really builds into that. And I think this is once again a lot of challenges. The challenge I've seen a lot of people who come from a corporate background trying to move into startup land is you need to put your ego aside. Once
Mm-hmm.
again in corporate land, if I do X, we achieve Y. So I'm a head of sales, a GM or vice president of sales. Look at
Mm-hmm.
me. I was told to grow our sales by 100 million. I had a budget of 10 mil. I added 20 more BDMs and boom, pow, look at me, I achieved 100 million, extra $100
Right,
million
right.
sales, right? So it can very easy go to your, I wouldn't say go to your head. I don't want to put it that kind of way, but it can very easily go, I've got this, I know what needs to be done. This is how we do it. Once again,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
startup land, in reality, don't care, right? Don't care about that. They really don't care. And so, when you're in a startup, when you don't have that name, you're just, you don't have those proof points, you don't have that validation. You're basically asking people in many ways to take a bet on you. To go, yeah, I like you and I like to take a bet on you. And that rarely ever is, once again, a straight line conversation. And you really need to go with some humility. um, you know, and trust me, I've known multiple business owners I've worked with before. Like, so I also help, with my experience, I also help coach and advise a lot of other startups and first time business owners. The ones who always go in going, no, this is the way it's going to be. This is the way it's going to work. I know it's going to be successful. My plans are infallible. It's going to be perfect. They're the ones who get the biggest reality check,
Right, right, right.
right? Real life just comes and punches you one in the face, and and they don't care. And so, being able to put your ego aside, I think really is key. And probably finally, I mean, once again, there's a lot of other things, but if I were to
Yeah.
impart some lessons,
So, as you mentioned the last point, it means it never goes as you plan. Suppose you are making a startup plan. So that's not going to happen if you think this will happen in this month. So that's not the probability, right? Something will hit and this will go to some other things only, right? That's what you're trying to
yeah,
say, basically.
you're
Yeah,
exactly
yeah.
right. So I mean, and I think you have to live with that contradiction. On one hand,
Mm.
you need to plan, right? If you
Yeah,
don't have a
yeah.
plan,
Right, right.
you're shooting yourself in the foot, and also investors don't like that. By the
Mm-hmm.
same token, your plan will never happen go according to plan,
Yeah,
right? So
yeah.
is that really interesting contradiction? I think that's probably, as we
Mm-hmm.
talk about it, that's probably the one of the other biggest lessons I've learned in startup. You got to be comfortable with the contradictions, right? With these
Mm-hmm.
inherent contradictions of working in the startup. Yes, you can make money, right? So investors will talk about, look at it in the potential of how much money you can make. You have to always think about how much potential this business could make, because that's how you attract investors. At the same time, you can't be focused on the money, because your startup, if you going by the stats, will probably, unfortunately, the odds are your startup will probably never make money. Right? There's a good chance that probably your startups will never
Mm-hmm.
make money, or if you do, it will not be the money that you're thinking of, or it will always take longer than you think.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So you might be thinking, well, I'm going to get paid. I'm going to have a great salary. I'm going to pay myself $1 million, and I'm going to do it in the first year, of my startup.
Mm-hmm.
Probably ain't going to happen. Probably
Yeah,
one, it will never
yeah.
happen. It probably won't happen until for the next 5 to 10 years. So
Mm-hmm.
what's going to keep you going is, for that, until that paycheck comes in, is your passion, right?
Right.
So that inherent contradiction between, you got to think about the money, but what really drives you gets you up on the day to day is that passion, right? So that inherent contradiction is a key part of the startup, which, once again, in corporate land, doesn't exist, right? In
Mm-hmm.
corporate land, I'm paid a salary, a particular salary or a bonus to achieve a particular outcome, do this particular job. That's it. Boom, simple,
Yeah, yeah.
right? Startup land don't work like that. So yeah. So I think that's kind of really, all those things, and so that comes probably up to the other big lesson. I put in that, as a founder, then, right? Once again, I know a lot of founders, like, we all won't go in thinking, like, we want to get paid, we want to have a nice salary, we see see our startup growing, and all the valuations, while I'm also have a nice salary where I'm getting, putting food on the table.
Mm-hmm.
But once again, that's not the reality, right? So
Yeah,
how
yeah.
can you live as light as you can, right? So if you actually think about it, I've some business owners go, look, if I'm not paid 200, I'm going to pay myself $200,000 in the first year, because I don't want to sacrifice on my quality of life,
Mm-hmm.
on my, on my expenses, on my, holidays and stuff.
Yeah, yeah,
Well,
yeah.
that's a nice to think about, but that's, once again, not reality. So cut back.
Mm-hmm.
What do you really need to spend on, right? Sure,
Right, right,
you got to
right.
pay your rent, right? You got to
Mm.
have a roof over your head. You got to eat, right? And sure, you need to have some money to, obviously, enjoy yourself as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Go out, watch a movie, or go have a break. That's all important. But if you actually sit back and think about it, there's a lot of ways to really, the things you don't have to spend money on, to cut back, so that you can really stretch your timeline, your runway, as much of it as possible. Give yourself as many chances as you can to get for your business to get up and running. If you burn all your cash in 6 months, you basically guarantee yourself like zero probability of success, because there are
Right.
almost very few, very small minority of startups that in 6 months go from zero to woohoo, kind of thing. Very
Yeah.
rare, right? So you always got to be thinking about, how do I make the limited resources I have, how do I stretch that to give myself as much time as I can, so that my startup can get the traction and the momentum it needs to be successful. So I think, think about, cutting all those kind of crazy expenses back. Do you really need a brand new TV? Right? Do you really need the latest Xbox? Think, look, I love to spend, get the latest stuff, but do you really need to? Right? Or is that money better spent
Yeah,
on
yeah,
helping your
yeah.
business get to the next stage?
Makes sense, yeah. So I have two more questions for you. Like, so what are your top three favorite books, or if you don't read books or podcast or something else, which like
Yeah.
basically, yeah, like from where you get your inspiration, kind of thing from.
Yeah, so to be honest, I mean, it sounds a little sad, but I haven't read a book for a couple of years, because I spend my days mostly reading emails, news, startup news and whatnot as well, but also just common general news on what's going on. Look, I think it's an interesting one. I know a lot of founders who really spend a lot of time reading about startup news. What's happening in the VC space, capital space, angel space, what's happening with those startups and whatnot. Financial markets and whatnot. And I think that's important. But I think like I find where I get a lot of the inspiration is just reading a lot of normal news. What's day to day. What's happening.
Yeah, yeah.
COVID, but also I think it's just, once again, getting that well-rounded view of the world, right? I'm not heavy into sports, but I still know what's going on in the sporting world.
Right, right.
I don't know. I don't live in the U.S., but I'm very across what's happening in the U.S. just broadly speaking in the politics and whatnot. Because I find that somehow sometimes you can draw these unexpected connections, with your business, and shows you those kind of trends that other people may not see. If you're always only looking at, for example, what investors angel investors are talking about, right, and you don't look at the kind of the general day-to-day news, you might be missing another aspect that you haven't considered at all. We're working on an assumption that that investors will see all the trends, and they don't, right? It's impossible for them to. So, as a founder, and also as a founder, but also a person who's part of society, right? You don't want to just do your startup because you want to make money. You want to do it because you makes an impact, that it helps people. That's adding value. Adding value in one way, shape, or form. And so by having a broader perspective, so I read a lot of papers, news kind of things, that like Slate, Vox, Vice Media as well, Politico, Sydney, Australia-based
TechCrunch
news.
might be.
Yeah, a bit of TechCrunch, some of
Mm-hmm.
the some of the tech forums, and well, once again, because it gives you different perspectives.
Right,
Um,
right,
you
right.
know, um, and then you can actually go, okay, yeah, look, that makes sense. And you sometimes go, well, actually, like, for example, I know, in the papers, for example, they talk a lot self-driving cars, like Google,
Yeah,
Uber
yeah.
trying to do the self car. But then you'll see it in the around how great it is that technology is going to change the world. But then when you look at more from a sociological point of view, there are also human impacts to that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So what happens to all the gig drivers? What about the number of people who've had accidents or been
Mm.
hit by a self-driving car? It's all great to say, look, we just need more data to train the self-driving car. But what
Right.
about the poor people who've died of have accidents now from it? And then that puts in my perspective. It makes me ask the question: we use AI and automation. Is what we're doing,
Yeah, yeah.
does that have a negative impact to human beings?
Yeah.
Are we hurting anyone from it? And the good thing is we can actually say, look, I can say on analysis is no, nothing. If our AI creates a video that's suboptimal, like let's say not perfect, right? Sure, okay, maybe it doesn't have the great marketing result, but no one dies from it. No one gets hurt. No one gets injured from it, right? Nobody's going to go, oh my God, I lost a family member from that, right?
Right.
So that we can go, okay, that's good. That at least we can, we checked ourselves and gone, we can add value
Mm-hmm.
to businesses, but we're also not hurting, we're not hurting anyone. Nobody's hurt from what we,
Right, right.
from what we do.
Yeah, yeah, makes sense.
It's also possible, someone could make the argument, are we taking away work from some of the, offshore, video people? But actually our market that we play isn't in that space. We don't actually touch on that space. So we're not taking
Mm-hmm.
any business away from those guys. We're actually helping businesses who are already video production companies that are already have existing clients, just do more,
Mm-hmm.
right? Do more for them, right? So that relationship, actually, we're enhancing that relationship, not taking anything away from anyone there, right? So once again, if you only look at from a purely investment point of view, that's all you look at. That there's easy to fall into that rabbit hole, of
Yeah, yeah.
only looking at from a pure am I making money point of view. Whereas we're looking at it going, look, big part of the value system that my team have is, are we doing good business, and good business that's commercially sound, but also we're not hurting anyone or stepping on
Mm-hmm.
anyone along the way. That's really, as an ethical point of view, that's really important to us,
Right,
that we
right.
can walk away and go, like, we've done a good business that everybody wins and nobody gets hurt from it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So one more question. So I had like, what are your top three favorite remote tools which you are using to manage your team remotely, and which are really helpful for you?
Yeah, that's right. So, I mean, the main three tools, to be honest, we use a Slack for communications,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what we also use it for our team chat sometimes. We use Zoom, for a lot of the video conferences. So all of my meetings pretty much are via Zoom.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, I know some people use Google Meets and whatnot, but actually I find that doesn't work for me half the time. Like we always
Mm-hmm.
get technical issues.
Yeah.
Zoom, and then finally Trello for task monitoring,
Mm-hmm.
because like once again, you could probably, anyone who's been listening to the conversation or talking about stand-ups and catch-ups, very much an agile kind of approach,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
agile kind of, so
Yeah,
Trello,
yeah.
with the cards and the list, I think works very well for us in that kind of way. Backlogs, whatnot, kind of works very well with our way of working. For our teams, once again, every team going to be a little bit different, but we find that kind of works really well for us. So we pretty much run most of our business off those three tools.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's been really effective for us, and also that's still also very cost effective, in general, to run.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. Yeah, yeah. Awesome. Great. So I think it was a great conversation, Laptin. Like we talked about remote work, mental health, and monitoring teams and etc. So I think we had a really awesome conversation. It was great talking to you.
No, great. Thank you, Pushpak. Thank you once again for inviting me to the podcast, and hope everyone gets to take something away from it.
Yeah, yeah, sure.